Hi, here we are continuing our study through the book of First Corinthians. We are continuing in chapter 7. We will start in verse 25, but real quick, real recap to what we had talked about last week. Remember, when someone is single, remain single in order to serve the Lord. If you're married, your focus is on the partner, your spouse, but then make sure that you're both serving the Lord together. And if you're unequally yoked, or if um, one person comes to the Lord while in marriage, then continue on that. You shouldn't separate or get divorced. And if you get divorced, then don't remarry. Is kind of like the idea behind there. But in any case, remember that you have to do all things for the Lord, whether you're married or single or in an indentured servant, which typically we don't really have in today's world, but that's the idea behind it. So let's go ahead and jump into verse 25. Now concerning virgins, I have no commandment from the Lord, yet I give judgment as one whom the Lord in his mercy has made trustworthy. So remember, he's not saying this as this is a commandment from the Lord, but he is giving his thought process since he has been called. He is an apostle, and how he is an apostle is because Jesus himself came up and spoke to him directly and called him into this ministry, right? Verse 26, I suppose, therefore, that this is good because of the present distress, that it is good for a man to remain as he is. Are you bound to a wife? Do not seek to be loosed. Are you loosed from a wife? Do not seek a wife. So, in the idea behind this, right, the idea here is it is good in its particular distress, right? In a case where someone is struggling financially or having trouble in keeping their house in order now, of course, a single man having trouble with keeping up with debts or has to work 2, 3 jobs, especially in today's world, and that's what I'm giving as an example, then you have to refocus your thoughts as to what you are going to be doing, right? Are you going to get married? Are you are you betrothed to someone? Uh, Engaged, right? If you are engaged with someone, do not seek to be removed from that relationship. Pursue it if you can. Work out the kinks, the stress that you are experiencing, and then plan on getting married. If you have separated, don't look for any other spouse. Basically, don't look for anyone else, because the reason why you decided to break up the engagement was because of either a financial distress or something happened. Maybe it was a death of a relative or something like that. But that does not give you the excuse to go ahead and find someone else to marry, is what he's saying here. Verse 28, but even if you do marry, you have not sinned. And if a virgin marries, she has not sinned. Nevertheless, such will have trouble in the flesh, but I would spare you. Verse 29, but this I say, brethren, the time is short. He wrote this almost 2,000 years ago, and we know that time is getting short to when Jesus will return. He was saying it then. We see the times going on now. The time is really short because Jesus will be coming back soon. So that from now on, even those who have wives should be as though they had none, those who weep as though they did not weep, those who rejoice as though they did not rejoice, those who buy as though they did not possess, and those who use this world as not misusing it. For the form of this world is passing away. Remember, because we have prophecy, we have encouragement, we have these writings that we read in the Bible that talk about Jesus coming back. We see that Jesus even mentioned that in the end times there will be a lot of tribulations going on. There's going to be wars and rumors of wars. There's going to be the increase of hate towards one another. The love of people will start to grow cold, that kind of thing. But he's saying here, Paul's saying, okay, even though that the time is short, act as if that time is short, that you're going to continue doing the things that you need to do in order to further the kingdom of God. You're doing things for the Lord, right? For those who are married, act like as if you're not married, but then don't act like as if you're not married, because you still have your spouse that you need to take care of. but you also have to make sure that you are doing what it is that you need to do in God's kingdom, sharing the gospel, letting people know that the end is coming. We have a promise of eternal salvation, but do not destroy other people's beliefs by being mean and hateful towards them. Just do what you need in order to do or to spread the gospel and share God's love in order to attempt to win them towards God. That's my thought. All right, so another thing to talk about here in verse 31, right, when it says, and those who use this world as not misusing it, uh, basically is we have been given things here on this earth. And there is a verse in the Bible that talks about everything is the Lord. The world is the Lord's and everything in it. Basically, we are managers, or we are the stewards that are managing the things that God has allowed us to have, and we are not to misuse them. We can use them in a way to share God's love, to share the gospel, to attempt to win people to Christ, to know that, hey, the things that we have are not our own, but we have a greater gift that is still in store for us, and that gift is coming, and Christ is coming. We have to be ready for that. Let's continue. Verse 32. But I want you to be without care. He who is unmarried cares for the things of the Lord. So he's going to do a little bit of explanation here about his views between those who are married and those who are not married, what they care about, right? But I want you to be without care. He who is unmarried cares for the things of the Lord, how he may please the Lord. Basically, going out and doing the things that he or she's called to do for the kingdom, serving a church, serving ministries, going out and sharing the gospel, evangelizing, that kind of thing. Verse 33, but he who is married cares about the things of the world, how he may please his wife. Of course, the man wants to do everything in his power to make sure that his wife is happy, to make sure that his wife is taken care of, to make sure that his children are taken care of. That's what he's talking about here. Verse 34, there is a difference between a wife and a virgin. The unmarried woman cares about things of the Lord, that she may be holy both in body and in spirit. But she who is married cares about the things of the world, how she may please her husband. So the role reversal here, the word virgin here can be used in three different ways, actually four, if you're also talking about the man. But in this case, where it's a woman, the one who's unmarried, one who has never had sex with a wife, or one that's going to be given away, a daughter of in marriage age. The idea behind it is the virgin, just like the man who is unmarried, has the potential and not necessarily the duties, but the push, well, the encourage. Why, I'm trying to think of the word right now. The the enjoyment of being able to serve the Lord and do the things for the Lord in today's world, where it's the serving in the church, making sure that things are prepped, making sure that the body in within the church are fed and helped, all that, doing all those helpful things in order to further God's kingdom. Yeah. Uh, So, and then basically the same thing where the married woman has, the idea of like making sure that her husband is happy as well. So, one of the things that I really take away from this is that the husband and the wife want to do this to each other. They help each other out, making sure each other's happy. So, it's not a one person party in a marriage. It's a dual thing. Um, Verse 35. And this I say for your own profit, not that I may put a leash on you, but for what is proper, and that you may serve the Lord without distraction. So in any case, whether you are single, whether you're married, you are still ought to be serving the Lord in any way you can. The husband and wife, duties are to each other, but they are to love each other as God loves. So they are supposed to be doing everything that they can for each other according to God's God's will, and that's their way of serving the Lord. As of course, they would also be serving others as well within the church. We do see that. Verse 36, but if any man thinks he is behaving improperly toward his virgin, if she's past the flower of youth, and thus it must be, let him do what he wishes. He does not sin. Let them marry. So this goes back to the self control part. The man can go ahead and get married to this to the virgin. Of course, this is talking about the woman who is in marriageable age, and uh, they could go ahead and marry. Right? He does not sin. Let them marry. Verse 37, nevertheless, he who stands steadfast in his heart, having no necessity, but has power over his own will, and has so determined in his heart that he will keep his virgin, does well. Same thing. Now, I think this is part is actually talking about the father who is the one who actually gives her daughter off into marriage. So there's the agreement between the father of the son. Now, we're talking about the Jewish customs. Uh, in today's society, this may not be viewed as the same. However, looking at this and how the biblical view of it, the father is the one who's responsible of giving his daughter away into marriage. So the idea here, right? So the man who is the father of this virgin, of this daughter, if it's up to him to say, okay, go ahead and get married, or no, I'm not going to let you get married. So in this case, so if he stands steadfast, this father stands steadfast in his heart and having no necessity, there's no necessity of his daughter getting married, and chooses that, he says no, don't get married. He's going to keep his daughter, in his family. He does well. It's okay, because then she could focus on serving the Lord. She could focus on maybe even learning more about learning more from the Father in serving the Lord, or doing other things that are beneficial to the kingdom. Um, or she could also refocus. I'm also trying to attempt to put this in today's society where we have so many things on here, but she could also focus on bettering herself, let's say with school, learning, going through like um, educational tools in order to, yeah, to grow. Verse 38, so then he who gives her in marriage does well, but he who does not give her in marriage does better. We kind of talked about this before, about the idea of someone who is single and she is able to serve the Lord. Verse 39, a wife is bound by law as long as her husband lives. And this is talking about the law of marriage. Right about in Leviticus, or is it Exodus? I can't remember. Why can't I remember? But if her husband dies, she's at liberty to be married to whom she wishes. And I'll remember when the Pharisees, or was it the Sadducees? It was the Sadducees who asked Jesus if a woman, her husband dies, and the brother can get, comes up and does the duty of marrying her to live on the family name, right? In this case, where if there is no familial line after that, she still has the right to get married, or she's at liberty to get married again to whom she wishes, but only in the Lord, of course. It has to be for the Lord, according to God, to His timing, and as the Lord wills. Verse 40, but she is happier if she remains as she is, if as a widow, because, as it continues here, according to my judgment. Now, of course, this is based on Paul's idea, and his, not really a ruling, but more of his, hey, this is what he thinks should be, right? And I think I also have the Spirit of God, is what he's saying. Of course, when you are born again, you are given the Spirit of God inside of you. So he's using that as a means to say, I have the Spirit of God. So, but she's happy if she remains as is, as a widow, because then, as we talked about before, then she will be able to focus on serving the Lord rather than pleasing the husband. So that wraps up chapter 7. We will continue chapter 8 next week. I urge you, or I encourage you, to read the chapter before. And if you have any questions, just go ahead and let me know. Y'all be blessed.